Israel and Hamas trade strikes across the Gaza Strip, killing hundreds after Palestinian militants launch a surprise attack on Israel. More than a dozen Israeli hostages have reportedly been released as US President Joe Biden pledges his nation's support.
The United States stands with Israel. We will not ever fail to have their back. We'll make sure that they have the help their citizens need and they can continue to defend themselves.
Israel retaliates. Gaza is hit by airstrikes overnight as the conflict escalates, with the Israeli Prime Minister saying the country has entered a long and difficult war.
More than 500 people from both sides are dead, and the Israeli military says dozens of civilians and soldiers are being held hostage by Palestinian militant group Hamas. It is Sunday, the 8th of October. Our main story. Some Palestinian gunmen remain at large in Israel this morning following yesterday's invasion, which has prompted a series of retaliatory airstrikes on Gaza.
The strikes killed at least 230 people in Gaza, while Hamas militants have killed at least 300 Israelis and taken dozens of hostages, both military and civilian.
Overnight, Israeli security forces rescued some hostages who'd not been taken back to Gaza and retook a captured police station. In the last few hours, they've shelled enemy positions in Lebanon after reports of incoming artillery in northern Israel. Our reporter Simon Jones has the latest.
What Israel is describing as its mighty vengeance on the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Overnight, Gaza has been rocked by explosions. Earlier, warplanes hit several buildings in the centre of the city. The Israeli Defense Forces released these pictures, which they say are Hamas cells being targeted. The Israeli military trying to show they are on the front foot after being taken by surprise by Hamas's attacks. The Israeli Prime Minister issued this warning in a televised address.
All of the places Hamas is active in this city of evil, all the places Hamas is hiding in, operating from, we'll turn them into ruins. I'm telling the people of Gaza, get out of there now, because we're about to take action everywhere with all our force.
This is how the attack by Hamas began yesterday morning. Armed men cutting through Israel's perimeter fence, accompanied by a wave of rocket attacks. Hamas released this footage showing an Israeli tank being targeted. It was a highly planned operation, catching Israel off guard. Israelis who'd been at a rave in the fields near Gaza were forced to flee for their lives. Hamas shows no sign of pulling back. The Israeli Prime Minister is warning of a long and difficult war. Diplomatic efforts to stabilise what is the largest escalation in this conflict for decades won't be easy. Simon Jones, BBC News.
Well, our security correspondent Frank Gardner has been looking in detail at the Hamas invasion and the intelligence failures which allowed it to happen.
This map here gives you some idea of the extent of Hamas's infiltration across the border from Gaza into southern Israel. These are 17 locations where we have verified the presence of Palestinian militants in this attack. Now, all these cross-border infiltrations by Palestinian militants, taken together with the thousands of rockets fired at Israel, represent a massive intelligence failure for Israel. It should have seen this coming, because they had regular military patrols going along that border. This is footage taken some years earlier, but they had cameras, sensors, informants inside the militant groups. And yet Hamas was able to charge through that border, crossing it with things like this bulldozer, paragliders by land, sea and air. And all the while, Hamas has been sending more missiles into places like this, Tel Aviv, this office and residential block here, hitting buildings while the Israeli Air Force hits Gaza. However this ends, it will go down as one of the worst failures of Israeli intelligence in 50 years.
Take a look at today's papers, which are, of course, dominated by the events in Israel and Gaza. This is the Sunday Express headline, Human Shield Horror, with a picture of what it reports to be an elderly Israeli woman being taken captive. It also has a picture, as you can see there, of a captured tank.
Well, the Observer's got a similar image of that captured Israeli tank at the Gaza Strip fence. Now, the paper points out that the surprise attack was launched on the morning of a Jewish holiday.
Moving on to the Sunday Times, the front page there shows a woman being led to safety as she clutches her young daughter in her arms with fire blazing in the background. The sophistication of the surprise assault stunned Israelis, the newspaper writes.
Well, other countries around the world have been showing their support for Israel. This was the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin, lit up, as you can see, last night in blue and white, the Israeli flag. Also lit up in similar colours, the Empire State Building in New York. We will have continuing coverage of that escalating conflict throughout the programme this morning, and there is much more for you. The BBC Live page is up and running on the BBC website.